Moreover, the non-renewal of economist Dr. Rujit Jadupat's contract as director of the EITI Secretariat on the maliciously false ground that he was a member of the AFC, and his replacement with long-standing PPP propagandist Dr. Prem Mizir added grist to the mill of the PPP's control freakism. The Dr. Jadupat-led secretariat had assisted the multi-stakeholder group and the independent administrator in the successful setting up of the EITI in 2017 and completion of 3 reports, namely 2017, 2018, and 2019, known as the first, second, and third reports, respectively. The Premier Secretariat, on the other hand, has led us into suspension. His talents reside not in transparency, nor in the operations of the various protocols and standards of EITI, which demands transparency. Indeed, he now has 4 months after the date of the suspension to still present the 2020 report. Not doing so will see Guyana being delisted from the international body. This, of course, will bring stinging rebukes to the Ali-led administration and huge embarrassment to Guyana. The AFC, too, was not surprised by President Ali's exaggerated, camouflaged concern now that suspension has happened. But what is worse is his irrational response in planting blame on COVID and floods and 2 members of the multi-stakeholder group, namely Mike McCormack and Vander Radzik. This is disgraceful and dangerous. Attacking 2 of the most prominent and active civil society members is plain suicide. EITI's standard makes it clear that each and every member of the multi-stakeholder group must operate and express their opinions freely without fear, coercion, and reprisal. As the AFC said last year, the independent administrator for the 4th report, that is for 2020, was hired in violation of EIT standard, at least in the eyes of these 2 members also. What was the heart of the matter, as the party now understands clearer, was that the terms of reference of the independent administrator did not reflect that it must report on the status of the implementation of the recommendations of the previous 3rd, that is the 2019 GYEITI report, in the 2020 report. This was missing consequent upon an overlooking of same by the Premier Secretariat. That overlooking itself has further questions and implications about it, and the AFC will probe further into that. And so both civil society members had every right then to speak their individual consciences to this issue and to similarly vote thereon. On this sacred matter of their conscience, the president saw it fit to criticize and retaliate. Of course, the flippant and flimsy COVID and floods excuse for not completing the 2020 report by 31st of 2022 is a deception that must be frowned upon. It is just a continuation of the PPP's journey to not only divide, but additionally to divert and rule. That's my statement on the suspension from EITI.
Thank you very much. And let me apologize to our members, our listeners on social media for the slight challenge with the audio. And I understand that we are being heard now. I'd like next to go to Member of Parliament Ricky Ramsaroop, and that will be followed by, and his statement is on carbon credits, and that will be followed by a statement by Member of Parliament Beverly Alert. Thank you. Ricky.
Thank you, Kathy, and all protocols observed. I also want to wish my fellow Guyanese a happy Republic Day. I know it was heavy rain, but I hope that everybody had a very good time. My press statement will be on the carbon credits revenue stream that recently been announced by the government of Guyana. The Alliance for Change notes the recent announcement by government that the entire forest of Guyana was assessed for carbon credits by R3s. This therefore means that the forests on Amerindian title and untitled lands were assessed. Those areas under the fourth parallel were assessed, and those areas given to loggers were also assessed. Even private lands, whether title or lease, were also being assessed. The only direct beneficiaries from the carbon credits are the Amerindians, who will benefit financially in an amount which is 15% of that amount received. This is the arbitrary sum of the government has come up with. There has no consultation or prior discussion in Parliament as to why this amount. On proper cognition, after consultation with Amerindians and other Guyanese, the AFC believes that the amount for Amerindians should have been 25% for a start, and the forest people should be given a chance to manage their own funds. The AFC finds it unfair that the forestry sector operators will receive nothing from the carbon credit monies, even though their forests were assessed and was used to get the value. Despite private logging companies expending hundreds of millions to ensure sustainable forest management is achieved, and spending hundreds of millions to maintain internal roads and other sectors such as gold miners and even the government uses. Surely this category of stakeholders ought to be beneficiaries too. The AFC notes that the government will receive 150 million United States dollars as its first payments. The Alliance for Change therefore proposed the following. A, that $10 million is utilized as a revolving fund for the forestry sector for the purpose to help retool and rebuild this vital foreign exchange industry. B, $3 million United States dollars for the Guyana Forestry Commission to enhance its operation in this institution, which is the backbone to ensure that our forest is managed sustainably. And C, 25% to the Amerindian, which will total 37.5 million United States dollars. This leaves a remaining balance of 99.5 million US dollars for the country coffers. The Alliance for Change would like to remind the Guyanese people, especially those in the loggers and the logging, that when it was in government under the coalition, a GGMC board decision was made to ensure that monies from the GGMC was set aside to build interior roads, and mostly loggers who were the major users of these roads were awarded the contracts. We have learned that some of these roads are now being built by private contractors who are doing a horrible job at it. Most of these interior roads and bridges are in a deplorable state, especially where the major activities of logging are taking place. For example, the Mabura Road and the bridge by the Korokari, which was recently collapsed, which was recently built also, has been collapsed. The road to the 14 miles, Isano, is in a terrible state. The famous bridge there, which is called the Iron Bridge, that many may know, is also in a dangerous state where a couple of sheets are being removed. No work has been done there. Even though that the contract has been awarded, there's little or no works being done. The Aichuri Kwakwani Road is in a terrible state. Likewise, the Itabali, Rockstone, Bartica Road are also in a terrible state. This here has been shown by the recent development on these interior roads that there were a lack of what we call, there's a lack of monitoring by these engineers, who are the ones supposed to be ensure that these roads are built based on specification. We therefore condemn these actions by the person who have been approving these roads, and contracts have been given. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricky. Now, Member of Parliament, Beverly Alert.
Thank you, Kathy, and allow me to add my voice to those of you who would have referenced the return of the traditional Republic Day celebration. And my statement addresses part of that whole series of activities where we celebrate our Republic anniversary, and specifically the event at Region 4 where yourself, as Member of Parliament, Kathy, you would have attended. And let me say that Women for Change, the women's arm of the Alliance for Change, condemns in the harshest possible terms the total disrespect directed at Member of Parliament Kathy Hughes. The behavior of Regional Executive Officer Donald Gajraj was nothing but vile bullyism designed to silence a female member of the National Assembly and the voices of women in general. For those who may not have seen the video recording, the regional chairman of Region 4, Daniel C. Ram, invited Member of Parliament Hughes, who was at the event, to deliver brief remarks. After he realized there were no female speakers at the event, thereon accosted the regional chairman and demanded the microphone, and like the schoolyard bully that he is, used his size and clout to silence the female MP, refusing her an opportunity to speak, even just for a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. The disrespect for the Member of Parliament, and a woman at that, as displayed by the RU, can only be seen as indicative of his total contempt for women. WFC calls on President Irfan Ali and the PPP to disassociate themselves from the REO and instruct that he issues an apology to the Member of Parliament. And let me add this, in another few days, less than 2 weeks, we will be observing International Women's Day. We're going to hear a lot of statements and a lot of press releases coming out from the PPP and the government of how they value women. But these will be seen as just rhetoric, meaningless, until the government takes action that would see no public official disrespecting a Member of Parliament, a female Member of Parliament, or any other woman. That is where it must begin. Don't come on International Women's Day with statements when here it is, a regional executive officer, a member of the PPP, can show such blatant disregard and disrespect for a woman. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, MP Beverly Alert. And I think at this point in time, we can take questions from members of the media. Please go through the usual protocol and identify yourself and the organization you represent.
I think I see Svetlana hands up.
Thank you very much. Svetlana, over to you.
Hi, good morning. Svetlana Marshall from News Source. My question is directed to Mr. Ramjatan. Mr. Ramjatan, could you say, should Guyana be delisted from EITI? What would be the primary consequences? And with the TOR finally being agreed upon, are you satisfied that enough systems are in place to allow the country to meet the May deadline?
Well, the consequences, as I stated in my statement, would be huge embarrassment to the country and stinging rebukes to the president for not wanting to live by the high standards of transparency that EIT calls for. Remember, Svetlana, this arrangement with Guyana and EITI is for complete transparency of all the gold contracts that were given to whether it is medium, small, or large mining companies, and also transparency as to who are the human beings behind those companies, what you call the beneficial ownership, how much money they are paying for these concessions, how much royalty are they paying, how much taxes are they paying? And it goes right across for forestry, for fishing, for oil and gas, and all the whole spectrum. So that Guyanese in a website can go and get all the information as to whether is friends and family and favorites of the PPP who have gotten the gold concession all across the country, or the forestry or whatever. And that is what brings a country to the democratic standard and the transparency standard of EITI in the extractive industries. Everything is now made extremely transparent. So we could know the size that, let's say, Alfonso got, if it is 1 million acres of mining land, 2 million acres, I'm just using that as an example, or Barama getting 4 million acres, whatever it is. So it is important to understand that that is the reasoning behind it. And so when you now get people inside of the Secretariat not doing the reports in time to suffer suspension and possibly expulsion, it means that the government of the day do not want to share that kind of information. The ordinary cane cutter in Albion does not know who and who got gold mining. They can now take it down the website, just like what the coalition did in relation to the 2017 report, 2018 report, and the 2019 report. And so it would lead to very embarrassing times to the so-called administration that says it loves transparency and talks heavily about it. In view of the other limb of the question, yes, we are happy now that indeed, with the terms of reference now going not to a consensual arrangement, but to a majority vote. And indeed, we understand that the two multi-stakeholders, civil society members, abstained because of their conscience telling them to do so, and that is entirely legitimate. Then yes, I am hoping that we can meet the May deadline now, because remember, after suspension, if within 4 months you do not come up with a report, you can be expelled, but they do not use the word expelled, they call it delisted inside of the standard.
Thank you, Kamraj. Any other questions?
Kathy, I wanted to just add a piece.
Go ahead.
Answer that question, Kamraj, and I'm very happy that you highlight that thing. I, as a former member on that MSG board, I recall when the Carter Center was here with the financing of that process. It took a lot of work, a lot of energy to get that secretariat together. And I have to thank the former Minister of Natural Resources, Raphael Trotman, who ensured he worked with us very closely day and night to ensure that secretariat functioned and that we are pushing ahead with the work need to be done. Because remember, the foundation is the hardest part of the work. And after 3 reports, you now go and have a suspension. I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed because the amount of work, we had hours and hours of going through documentation to ensure that the MSG function and ensure that the reporting format have been adhered to, ensure that all the stakeholders involved have been consulted with. So I don't understand how flood now affect that process. I mean, I find it very, very disrespectful that such an excuse will be read for accountability and transparency. And the whole objective of setting up this EITI, which we now call the GYEITI, was based on what you call ordinary Guyanese can go on the website to say, you know what, Ricky Ramsroop have harvested 1,000 cubic meters of logs. He has paid the Guyana Forest Commission $2 million, and the Guyana Forest Commission now said on the same website that they received $2 million. And that's how the thing was built in. So I'm so disappointed as a former board members of the MSG that we have gone to this state. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you for that.
If I may add, Kathy,
yes, Beverly.
the EITI is seen as a sort of gold standard for the global extractive industry. So being listed as a country that complies with the reporting mechanism says to the world that here is a country that is transparent in its extractive industries. Here is a country where all players say what it is that they're doing, how much they're earning, how much they're paying in taxes, etc. It also aids in fighting money laundering, because ordinary John public who may see a person putting up big mansions, putting up big buildings and wondering, oh, but he only has a small claim or a small timber grant, what's going on, can go there and see how this person is growing. And so to lose that gold standard, that check mark that says Guyana is doing things right, that is a step backward. As MP Ramsuru just explained, the hard work that went into getting us to make those first 3 reports, 2017, 2018, 2019. You know, that was aggressive work, and that was a step upward. What we're seeing now is a step backward. And we can only hope that good sense prevail, that the Secretariat is able to complete its work unhindered, without political intrusion, so that the country, Guyana, you know, will be able to maintain its gold standard. Already that gold standard is being tarnished. And we have to get back to where we were when we presented those first 3 reports, and to build on that. We keep tearing down and breaking down and, you know, moving backward. As a country with such a great economic trajectory upwards, we need to do things better. And so again, I hope that good sense will prevail and the Secretariat will be able to do its work, that the information is provided, and that the report now would be more inclusive than that what was presented before, what was tabled before. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Any other questions? Davina, I see Davina from Kaito News. Go ahead, Davina.
Thank you, everyone. And I must say, welcome back to the AFC. You've been missing in action for quite some time, and it's good to have you guys back on the scene. Mr. Ramjatan, I have a few questions or issues that I'd really like to hear your comment on. First of all, sir, there was a story we carried, I think it was just yesterday, where we reported that Mr. Glenlaw lost his tax case challenging these excessive tax waivers to the oil company. Can I start by just asking you to give me a quick comment on that issue?
Well, I am disappointed by the decision. I thought that Glenn was going to win it. I know it was going to be a very difficult case. As I had indicated even to Mr. Christopher Ram. But I am disappointed because indeed, if we had won it, we would have certainly gotten some more revenues in the form of taxes, which were exempted and waived. But when at the time we were doing it, we felt that we were also acting in accordance with the law by doing the exemption, as sometimes happens with pioneering industries where you can make them tax-free for the first 5 years of their existence. Disappointed is what I will use as the word.
So are you saying that you regret making that decision?
Nope, I do not, because indeed, it seems like the law is now vindicating us. What I wanted to say here is that to get that great decision signed up, it was an important thing that we take all of these things into consideration. And I have gone through this and already explained to you and a lot of the other reporters, the fact that we managed to get the signing up of that petroleum production agreement going, and then they came and we are now getting about $2 billion a year, is one of the finest economic decisions ever made for the benefit of this country. ExxonMobil, Hess, and CNOOC are not easy companies to deal with. But if they wanted, and we could have granted exemptions, as we understand the financial people who were bargaining on our behalf said it could be done, well, that is it. So I'm not going to retract my original position that indeed the contract was a good one.
I hear you. I hear
foolish
you,
in my
Mr.
part.
Ramtatan. Thank you. But you did say that Ghana has been making, well, you said we can now make about $2 billion. But sir, when we look at the amount of losses from these tax waivers, do you still think that it's a good decision, or do you think this is part of the provisions that we should probably renegotiate in the future? Because you did say that you believe that the contract should be renegotiated. So is this an aspect that you are looking forward to be renegotiated in the future?
Yes, certainly. And I've already stated that too, about a year now. Because there are changed circumstances. When we signed up, it was about 4 or 5 billion barrel. It is 11 billion barrels now. And we had signed up in relation to that one Lisa arrangement and said that we are going to change certain terms as we go along. And so, indeed, but at the time when we signed what we signed, Davina, we were going to get this kind of monies, 2 billion, and it could raise it when we reach 700,000 barrels and all of that to far higher amounts. You do not now, when you sign on, then go and say, well, you know, I should not have done that and I should not have done that. We leave it on people like Christopher Ram to fight for at the legal level and so on, that probably more taxes should be paid. But at the time, we did what we did knowing that we are going to get monies. If we did not do that, you, Davina, and all the other reporters would have been cussing us down. Why did you not sign the agreement that at least we could have got $1 billion or $2 billion? Because the people were going to walk away.
I like the way you ended your last statement there, that they were going to walk away. Sir, this has been the argument now that if we change the PSA now, that Exxon may walk away from Guyana. We heard Mr. Vice President Bar Jagdeo said at the energy conference just a few days ago that when Guyana was looking to implement a local content legislation, Exxon and others, the oil companies, were saying, oh, it's going to drive investment away and it might shut down the industry and so on. But government still, they did not heed to that threat, and they implemented the legislation, and here we are today thriving, benefiting from local content revenue. So do you think that if we change this contract now, do you believe these investors are actually going to walk away from Guyana?
I do not believe that they're going to walk away. You got to be smart enough to let them come with all those heavy facilities that they have put in place, and that alone will not make them go away. So you have at least some amount of strength now for that negotiation. I had argued that since last year. But at the point that you wanted them to come, you had to ensure that they do not walk away. And that was the arrangement that we had. And when compared to the advice we were getting from a lot of people, I got to ask back Raphael Trotman, who are the people that we got advice from? They said it was a reasonable contract, at least for the start. And so that is why we signed on. But now, I do not fear that they're going to walk away. This is a gold-bearing vein that they have found. And so that they're going to stay. But the Jagdeo administration now, when it was in opposition, lied to the people. They are the ones who are the liars, that they're going to renegotiate and review the contract. And now with all the changed circumstances, the fact that the people are not going to go anywhere, no, we're not going to renegotiate.
And if we can also contextualize the environment at the time when that contract was signed, you know, the media would recall that at that time, Venezuela issued a decree that basically saw all those resources that were then discovered falling within Venezuelan territory.
Okay.
And so we had the saber rattling taking place by Venezuela there on our border, threatening our oil wealth. And so there was some level of urgency to get, let us say, the Exxon company, you know, a company out of Big Brother, to occupy that area, to basically seal those resources. So we cannot just look at the signing of the agreement and what it provided and did not provide without putting it into context of what was taking place at the time. That is not to say that there is not a need at this time to renegotiate.
Yeah.
You know, so I just want persons to remember that.
Thank you very much. If I may, Ms. Kathy Hughes, can I go ahead with my other questions?
Yes, please go ahead, Davina.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ramjitan, just before we come up the issue of renegotiation, we know that government has said, they've basically said on multiple occasions that they are not going to renegotiate that 2016 contract. But sir, do you think that we should at least be trying to move in the direction of implementing an addendum to at least implement stuff like ring fencing, perhaps increased royalty in those other projects going forward?
Absolutely. And as I indicated a year ago, I think I was in New York when I made the statement at a conference that indeed all of these things should be renegotiated now. I hope I'm clear on that.
Yes. Just before my last question, you did say that we had some help. I think you said you had some advice on this contract, and person said it was not, well, it was a fair deal and so on. Can you say if Guyana sought the help of international consultants or whether it was in-house people that
It was
guided your
international
decision?
consultants as far as I am aware, and I could get that for the next press conference from Raphael Trotman as to who and who helped in thing. I remember after the contract was signed and there was criticism, we asked a famous Sir Paul Collier to come down, and Paul Collier indicated that in the circumstances of first oil ever in this country, Trinidad and them got 100 years and so on, and Nigeria and all those places they might get better deals because they know that indeed this their countries had oil. But for the first time, he indicated too that for a first oil country, that it was a reasonable deal, and we should not doom our development in future by trying to make a hard bargain and then the people walking away or saying that they will not be there.
All right, thank you.
Kamraj, I can just add that I think Chatham House was one of the
Oh, Chatham House.
organizations, very reputable international
Yeah.
agency that came down and gave us advice. And I will certainly reach out to former Minister Trotman to give us a listing of the many partners that we
Advisors.
and advisors. Okay, Davina, are you through now? I do want to give us anyone else an opportunity.
Okay, you can come back to me.
Okay, are there any other hands up? I'm not seeing any. And if not, we'll get Davina to do her last question.
I actually have two others.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead, Davina. Davina is the star today, and after we'll go to Tamika.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramjitan, can I have a comment from you or any other of the AFC executives on the direct government-to-government partnerships for Guyana's oil blocks? We heard Mr. Jack Dio and the president saying that they are going to move in this direction. What are your thoughts?
Look, I do not have an objection to direct government-to-government. What we would like to see, however, is the transparency of whatever is the government-to-government deals or transactions. We would want it to at least be brought to the parliament, the direct government-to-government thing, and that there should not be any secrecy or stealth about it. It should be open. And that's what I call position at this point.
Okay, Davina, your last question, and then I'm going to invite Tamika and then Svetlana.
Thank you. I would like to have a comment as well on the delayed audit report. The audit of US $7.3 or $4 billion ExxonMobil's expenses.
Oh, that is driving tremendous concern in the Alliance for Change as to why it has not happened. And next week, we are going to get Vince Adams to state a more detailed position on why the delay of that audit. We feel, rule of thumb, when such delays happen, sometimes it is machinations and skullduggeries brewing. And unless it is some proper explanation is given, we would want to believe that the entire country is going to speculate. And the speculation without explanation can be very unenlightened. So we might as well, I am very concerned about it.
Okay, but we haven't had an explanation as to why it has been delayed. All we've heard that the final report will be issued in March. I think it's March, Minister Vikram Bharat had said, but there is no explanation as to why.
Well, there it is. I have stated that indeed there might be skullduggeries, you know, and the genuineness and authentic report might not reflect the true values of all that which Exxon is declaring and suggesting. So we have to pressure the government and Exxon to come up with the proper values, because these big transnational companies like Exxon and so on can do a lot of mischief. And we have read about them. The PPP used to be the greatest ideologue as to the nasty habits of transnational companies. Imperialists, they call them. But they've forgotten all of that now.
Davina, that situation is totally unacceptable. And the fact that there has been no explanation just shows the lack of priority that is being given by the PPP administration to the management of our financial resource. And it is really, really an abomination and totally unacceptable. And we hope that we will see that audit being completed. And as you are intimating, at least a proper explanation. And really, there is no proper explanation, because this should be our #1 priority in terms of how we manage our oil resources. Let me go straight to Tamika.
Well, Kathy, if I may, before you go on,
Sure.
Not given explanation is the MO of the PPP. Look in the National Assembly.
Yep.
The opposition asked for the details on that gas to shore to energy project. And the Prime Minister stood up in the House and basically said, in effect, when he's ready, at the appropriate time.
Yep.
You know, so that's the sort of behavior you get from this government. So not giving the media or not giving the public a proper explanation as to why the audit, you know, is not being completed and not being laid. It's just their way of doing things. And as you all said, totally unacceptable.
Before we go to Tamika, I had a very interesting telephone call on Thursday from the Speaker of the House. I had actually laid in the Parliament close to 10 or 11 questions on the gas to shore project. And not the Speaker, the clerk on behalf of the Speaker was saying to me that my questions, which I had laid many weeks ago, could not be answered because in the public domain, Winston Brassington had supposedly answered some of the questions. Now, I found that to be totally unacceptable, because the reality is that the minister, the government minister responsible, has a responsibility to lay in the Parliament his responses. The fact that the clerk and the Parliament expect me to be going with whatever is reported in the media, which we know could have high levels of inaccuracy, is just bizarre. That you would not feel that you have a responsibility to answer for Guyanese how this resource is being utilized and to answer any question. So we have been on a back foot and in a backward slope when it comes to the operation of the parliament, where we don't go beyond to try and answer any concern by any MP that represents many, many citizens. But we deliberately want to censor, to shut out any response, to prevent any information being given to the public. And that is what we are seeing for a long time. We have gone from a press conference every week after every cabinet meeting to an attitude that says when we're ready, if we feel like giving you information on your national resource, we'll see if we feel like telling you that. Again, unacceptable. Tamika, can I ask you to ask your question?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, Tamika.
Hardly heard her.
Can you give me a minute to pick up my head?
I'm not
Hi, are you guys hearing me
clearly.
okay now?
Yeah, much better, much better. Apologies for the delay. Please go ahead.
I didn't catch that. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing
Oh.
you now, nice and clear.
Okay, good. Just checking. I had a headphones and I think it was giving me a bit of problem. That's
Okay.
why. All
Okay.
right. I want to ask a few questions that build on some of the things that you guys spoke on when you were speaking with Davina. The first one is on renegotiation and the Exxon contract. This is a situation that has been well explored in the media, well discussed continuously. Both sides of the political divide have given their thoughts on it. The ASC has continually pushed for the renegotiation. But the government's contention is that renegotiating the contract is that it would be a show of bad faith and send out the wrong message to international investors. If the government of the day reneges on the contract signed by a previous government, and that is the reason that they are not renegotiating the current contract, even though they already put out a different contract going forward for other companies that will do explorations in the other oil blogs going forward. What is the ASC thoughts on that, given that the government is saying that it will send out the wrong message about Guyana? If one government goes back on a contract signed by another government, what will it say to international investor? Is that a reasonable argument to say we can't just go about persons invest under one circumstance and we are changing things for them after they have already invested under one contract? What does the ASC say to that, to the government's defense on that? I have another question.
Kemra, I'd ask you, I think part of it has been answered, but I'd ask you to comment.
Look, the renegotiation of any contract at any point, just let me cut this thing off, because the renegotiation of any contract can happen if there are changed circumstances. If there is a windfall profit in America for shale oil, although the government then, which had signed the tax agreement as to how much taxes it will collect from Exxon, can go and renegotiate and say, with this windfall, we are asking for more taxes. And that's a renegotiation. America has done it recently and is in the process of doing it even more. The Jagdeo set of boys in opposition indicated that, yes, we will renegotiate. And so it is all a pack of lies on their part to now say we can't renegotiate. They just wanted to fool their supporters into voting for them and other people by this big lie. As we said at the time of signing, it was indeed a reasonable contract. And so It is not a show of bad faith, as the Jagdeo is now saying in government as vice president. It is a barefaced lie and a volte-face, a somersaulting of positions, and not wanting to deal with ExxonMobil, the parent company. And so it can never end, this quest for renegotiation. We had felt that the prices for the oil would have been in the vicinity of $60 or $69 at the time, with a cost of production of about $40 and so on. But it went to $120 and it went to lots more. And then it came down to 90 and now it's about some $79 and whatever. Isn't that good enough to change circumstances? And at the time, we only had 4 billion barrels was told, is what we found. And we didn't know that there are 11 and now about 20 billion barrels and whatever. So you as a government can now renegotiate a better deal. But the PPP, government and Jagdeo and all these culprits out there that said bad things about our oil agreement, now not even wanting to go there, although tremendously more oil is there. They're suckering up to the ExxonMobil. That is what they're doing.
And Tamika, really, I'm sure when Mr. Jagdeo said that he was going to renegotiate, he took into consideration the sanctity of contracts. So
yes,
I think that is definitely just an excuse. I know we're running out of time. Tamika, did you have another question?
Just quickly, Kathy. Let me say that when you speak with a forked tongue, you create confusion. Because this is the very government who, at the end of 2020, at the start of 2020, was saying that they will not honor any agreement signed by the APNU AFC government. If it applies for the local companies, why can it not apply for international companies? And we're not saying scrap and stop and cease production. We're saying get to the negotiation table. Thank you.
There is no company in Guyana, Kathy. There's no company in Guyana that can hold government at gunpoint. None. You understand? This is your country. This is your turf. This is when you come as business people here, you have an opportunity to work with the government. You can't say that you're working with the company. The government can work with the company. You understand? It's vice versa. So we have to ensure to know exactly when we're asking the questions. You understand me? Especially when you go into those press conference, those are the hard questions that has to be asked.
Thank you, Ricky. Okay, Tamika, did you have another one? And then we want to go to Svetlana.
Yeah, my other one was about the cost oil audit, because you were saying that the government said nothing, but I recall the Minister of Natural Resources noting that one of the reasons that the cost oil audit was delayed was because there was capacity building going on. And one of the purpose of the local company forming a consortium with the international company was to ensure that capacity building was done even while the cost oil audit is being done. So
Tamika, do you have a question?
Yes, my question is—
what is the question?
How can it be said that the government hasn't said anything about the cost oil audit when the Minister of Natural Resources plainly explained why the cost oil audit is coming out until March?
Okay, so let me just say that question, the person that made the statement was Davina about, what nothing had been said. So I don't think that's an issue for discussion here. We can't begin to respond to comments made by the reporter. Is there anything else? If not, I'd like to go to Svetlana.
Parliament said what was the case with the cost oil audit, and the AFC is agreeing that nothing was said about it, but something was said.
And
we don't regard that what was said there was very relevant to the answer and the legitimate explanation. Absolutely nothing. It was just deferring, just like the Prime Minister did in relation to the investment of that gas to oil show, and the explanations they give every time. Oh, it is in the public domain. Why don't you go and check it? all these contracts that are being given to friends and family. It is in the public domain. Go and check it when we ask the question. So please, let's
Okay,
not
thank
be
you. We're
overburdened by
almost
your-
out of time, so I really want to go to Svetlana.
Thank you. Hello?
Hi,
Could I
Svetlana.
go ahead with my question? Thank
Yes,
you.
please do.
It's about the gas to shore project. And I know that Ms. Yu said that 11 questions were put to the National Assembly, and they were, she was subsequently informed that they've been disallowed. Could you just give us a synopsis of what those questions are? And secondly, could you say if the AFC is satisfied with the explanation given by Mr. Brassington that the government will be required to pay US $55 million per annum for 20 years for the gas pipeline? What do you make of the explanation given?
Tamika, let me start off by saying, Svetlana, I'd like to, after this press conference, I will issue to the press the questions that I asked. I have to admit that I'm not, I don't have them on close access at the moment. And in terms of the follow-up question, I really would like to ask Kemraj maybe to answer that one.
Just remind me again the second limb of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Brassington in his explanation said that government will be required to pay US $55 million to Exxon for 20 years for the gas pipeline, for which Exxon is injecting US $1 billion to facilitate the construction. What do you make of the financial arrangement?
It is very highly questionable, and I believe that there are lots behind it that must worry the entire country. We have had a lot of information from David Patterson as to what it was that will be the cost of this gas to shore that we had proposed to have under a coalition arrangement, and how the gas and everything else is going to be free almost and so on. For a government now that had said that our deal and arrangements with Exxon were all rotten, to now come and say that $5 billion for 20 years, without showing us the investment documents that we were begging them for during the budget process, goes to show that this might very well be a very bad scheme, and it might be to the benefit of certain people. We have known of big transnational corporations working deals with governments in some of the other countries where oil was found. We feel that this is going to be a very bad deal for Guyana, and especially with Mr. Brassington there, quite frankly, heading all these deals now. I mean, look, we had seen what had happened a long time with all the transactions that he was dealing with. We had questioned them. He's the man that they brought back now. And we feel that $5 billion for 20, that's $100 billion for a gas to shore for the arrangement. And that is a far higher price than what we, when talking to people who are experts on these matters, are saying. And to that extent then, this might be a Ponzi scheme to make some people inside of the government rich.
We appear to be paying for our own gas.
To follow up on the question quickly, the government has said that the gas will be free, but the revenues from the gas plant will be used to repay Exxon. Exxon has said that the gas will be sold to government. At this stage, government is moving ahead, but given your concern, what do you believe could be done to remedy the situation to ensure that, Guyanese get value for their money and they're not overpaying for anything?
Well, you can expect when a government is changed that these kinds of things are going to be scrutinized very thoroughly. And if we find that there was wickedness inside of those contracts and the transactions, we certainly going to ask for remedial action. At the executive branch level, we can take executive action to remedy the situation. At the position now as being members of the opposition, it's hardly the case. So it is what we can do is to tell members of the public, this is the rascality that is going on with the PPP, and so much money is now for a gas to shore project and so on. That we are urging them to change this government. That is the political action that we can at this point take. I don't think that we can go to court. I don't know if there can be any jurisdiction in the court in determining this matter and things like that. But the corrective actions can be taken, just like how Jagdeo had proposed that he was going to take corrective action because he felt that the thing was rotten. Similarly, we will certainly do that once there is a new administration that at least has a Ramjatan inside, and I'm certain a Beverly and a Ricky and so on, Kathy, because we will have to correct that. And that is what a government can do. It has unfettered discretion in relation to previous arrangements made, especially if they are egregious and mischievous and corrupt.
Svetlana, if I could say, next week we will, once he's available, we will have Member of Parliament and former Minister of Public Infrastructure, David Patterson, come to the press conference to look at some of these issues, only because, as you know, he was the person that first started the discussion of the possibility for an oil and gas project in Guyana, did consultations, did extreme investigations, produced environmental impact assessment and quite a few research documents. So I think he would be ideal to clarify a little more detail on our position and just add to what Mr. Ramjatan has said. Okay, if there are no other questions, because I know Mr. Ramjatan has to be in court.
Yeah.
I do want to offer to take one more question, and if it is from someone that has not had the opportunity. I don't see any hands going up. Beverly, correct me if I'm missing
No, I'm
anyone.
not seeing any.
Okay. Okay, so with that, Svetlana, did you have one more question in a different area, maybe?
No, that's okay with me. No.
Okay, great. So members of the media, we've had an extensive discussion today. I want to thank you all for coming on to the press conference. We continue to appreciate your support in getting our positions and information out to the general public. We want to say continue to have a safe and happy holiday weekend, and we'll see you next week, same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.